Hello, and welcome back to another Halloween style review, where, of course, as you can tell by the title, I'm reviewing a childhood classic of The Little Vampire, the original Little Vampire, the early 2000s one, because as I was watching this movie last night and looked some stuff up, turns out that there is a 3D animated remake of the movie that ages the boys up a bit. And yeah, I probably won't be giving that one a watch anytime soon. But yeah, so The Little Vampire. You see, this was one of my favorite movies as a child. I had two absolute standout favorites for me growing up that I would rewatch on VHS religiously. The Little Vampire being one of them, the other one being Thomas and the Magic Railroad. And to be quite honest, it's been over a decade since I last seen this. 2010 was the last time I seen this because I remember it well. There is some not kind of negative like memories associated with it. It was a time when my mother was very sick, and she was in had to be in hospital for a month. Not gonna go into much more details than that, but while she was there, she managed, on one of her a lot of days that she was allowed out of the hospital, she found a copy of this and bought it for me because, like I said, this was one of my absolute favorites as a kid. And so that's how I know that 2010 was the last time I had sat through this film. And I've been meaning to rewatch it because, like I said, it's been 10 years. So, what did I think upon this rewatch? Because, sometimes when you rewatch a movie from when you were a kid, you tend to not see it in favorable light. And I can safely say that still to this day, I absolutely love this movie. It is a perfect movie from beginning to end for me. You see, last night when I watched it on my laptop, because I have a digital version burnt onto it from the disk drive that I had, I saved a copy of it onto the laptop, so that's how I watched it without having to, take the DVD out. Um, Last night my plan was to watch it in the background whilst playing some Fallout 3. I can tell you now, I did not play any Fallout 3 that night. I was that engrossed in this film because I had forgotten a lot of it. There were some certain bits that stuck out in my mind that I could recall, but I had forgotten about a large part of this film. So this film takes place in Scotland. In well, the film since it came out in 2000, it was filmed in 1999, so we'll call it 2000 just for the sake of things. Where the main character of Tony Thompson is constantly having these recurring nightmares about vampires, specifically performing this ritual with with something that would have helped make them human again, which we learn later on in the film. And so he constantly has these nightmares, and so when his parents have to go to see his boss at this big party at night. We see Tony mimicking of being a vampire. He cuts out fangs, which is another scene that stuck out. Which is one of the few scenes that stuck out in my memory. And he fakes drinking blood from his teddy bear. Using ketchup for blood. But whilst that's happening, we do see that Rudolph, one of the main groups of vampires who then becomes his best friend, witnesses him reciting some of the lines from uh, you know basically from what Tony had seen in his vision, and so that gets Tony Rudolph to go seek refuge as well. He's been hit with a bunch of light beams from a vampire hunter, so he's very weak at this point. And then he goes. Tony brings him to drink blood from a cow, which then starts a rule of three of a comedy bit. And that is, the farmer, the next day, we see him go out, count his cows. He sees one is missing. So he goes to check the barn, and the cow immediately runs for darkness, hissing at him. And then it's as he closes the door that we see the red eyes of a vampire, or rather, vamp cow. The apparently from drinking his blood, the cow's blood turned it into a vamp cow. And that's like I said, it's a rule of three. It happens throughout the film. There's also other instances of that. So basically, Tony and, like I said, Rudolph become best friends, and Tony elects to help them track down this medallion because every 300 years or 350 years, this comet is going to align with the moon, and if they do it just right, then we get that, they free themselves of the vampiric curse. But the vampire hunter has the opposite medallion, where if he gets the piece that was missing, then he will be able to send them to hell, kill them essentially. So it's basically a race against time. Follow the clues. Turns out that the boss of Tony's dad is the one who one of his great ancestors, the one that found one of the relations to Rudolph's family, who dove in trying to get the medallion after they got attacked by vampire hunters 300 years ago or 350 years ago. And so it's basically neck and neck with them trying to find it. Turns out the medallion was actually hidden in Tony's floor all along, which is probably why Tony was having those nightmare visions, and how anytime he comes into contact with something vampire related, he does end up having visions. So eventually, they get it, they free it, and all the vampire family gets cured, including the vampire cows. After one of the like I said, one of the scenes that I remembered a lot as a kid was the ending. Essentially, was where Tony gets is in the car um with the vampire hunter and the vampire cows. One of them shitting on the windshield, leading the car to go over a cliff, one of the cliffs in Scotland, and then the ending where Tony wishes that they would be back, that the vampires would be cured, and then cut several months or a year later, and they come across the family at random, and they don't recognize them until Tony does the whistling, and that's what clicks in for them to remember. And so they all go over, and now they can be friends and stuff, as they are normal boys, normal family. So yeah, Richard E. Grant plays the vampire dad in this, as you can see on the cover there. And this actually is the first Richard E. Grant film that I've ever seen. I do love Richard E. Grant. He's a fantastic actor. He's played two different versions of the Doctor, one for a Children in Need special, the other for the Scream of the Shalka stuff. So that's your Doctor Who mentioned there. Plus, he also played the Great Intelligence in Series 7B. So that's another part that he's played. And yeah, obviously Jonathan Lipnicki, I know I grew up with him in this movie as well as the Stuart Little films. So yeah, even after 24 years later, this film still holds up, and I absolutely loved it. Like I said, I had planned to play Fallout 3 whilst I had this in the background. That did not happen. I was that engrossed in the film, and it still holds up in my opinion, and I love it. I'm glad that I got to rewatch it for this year's um, October reviews, because I've been that meaning to get around to watching it. So yeah, very happy to revisit this childhood classic. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you have seen this movie, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below. And I shall see you all on Friday for another Star Trek Borg review, where I'm going to be reviewing Descent Parts 1 and 2, the last of the TNG Borg episodes. So I'll see you all on Friday for that one.